The villagers of Lemonal usually enjoy a quiet, rural life surrounded by greenery and farm animals. But now, they feel their way of life is being threatened after developers bought 7,000 acres of land adjoining the village. According to them, it's an issue they've been facing since 2007, when the then PUP government promised them leases that they were never able to use.
I was invited in 2007, among many other villagers, to a meeting that was supposed to be held here in Lemonal. I was told that the lands minister will be here to issue land all over again. Because I said all over because many people were already in possession of land documents. But apparently those documents were not genuine because the government had then informed the community that the land was privately owned and that the government would be acquiring back the community that we live on and portions outside of the community, meaning the peripheral areas where we could use for village expansion and farms. They came here in our community and they issued lease left, right, and center. Even though they were signed and sealed by the minister, they were not honored by the government of Belize as legitimate certificates. What a shame.
They learned that the land they were residing on, as well as the thousands of acres surrounding it, was not government property, but instead it was owned by a foreigner. They had hoped that the government would be able to acquire the land and allow them to expand their village. But a decade later, they noticed that developers had started to clear the land immediately outside the village.
Fast forward to 2019, villagers became alarmed when in early 2019, heavy equipment started to move in the village and massive excavations started to happen, literally in our backyards, ripping apart lands that holds not only our animals, but the very livelihood of our families. So on behalf of many concerned villagers, after I learned that 7,000 acres of land, including our community, were being claimed by a private investor, upon receiving this information, we took the following actions. The first step, on April 12th, a formal letter of request was made to the then village chairman, to the area representative of Belize Rural North, to the lands minister, to the commissioner of lands, and copied to all villagers. In that communication, some of the following major concerns were highlighted.
In that letter, they asked the recipients to see to it that the ownership of the land would be carried over for village expansion and would not be given or sold to any entity, whether private, public, or business. The letter went unanswered, which prompted Anna Banner Guy to create a petition, which was then sent along with a letter to the then Minister of Natural Resources. She also wrote to the Mining Department and the Department of Environment, but she hit dead ends every time. But while those correspondences went mostly unanswered, the shareholder of the company who, at the time, was purchasing the land, Larry Flowers, approached Guy.
I was asked by Mr. Flowers that I was told that he has ownership to the land. I asked for documentation. He could not present it at the time. And he asked if we're interested in getting any amount of this land or land in this area, that we would have to write a letter to his company. It is not out of pride that I cannot even tolerate that we cannot tolerate that request, but it is out of principle.
But the reason Flowers could not produce land documents was because the private owner, Joseph Watson, had died, and it was a lengthy process to acquire the land. But that process has come to an end, and the land officially belongs to Flowers' company, named Rodla. But despite what the villagers believe, this land does not include the 500 acres that make up Lemonal. Flowers clarified that, as shown on this plan, the village's lines are marked off, and his property consists of the two blocks, 281 and 285, outside the village. He told us this information off camera.
In 1972, to my knowledge, Joseph Harold Watson had bought that land, and recently, since 2015, we have been in discussing the possibilities purchasing of the land, and that transaction has concluded. And I don't know what or why they are questioning the scenario. I don't. It's a private transaction.
So the land in question is, I believe, 7,000 acres, but their 500-acre village also sits inside that land.
To my knowledge, Joseph Harold Watson had owned over 8,000 acres of land. In 2002, the Honorable Maxwell Samuel, through his association with Mr. Watson, granted the village of Lemonal 500 acres. The remaining portion was sold to me just recently. So this was a private land owned by a private individual for many years. The question is, now that I buy it, what is the problem?
This transaction is complete.
It is complete. There is a grant of administration because Mr. Watson has passed 228 of 2020 in the Supreme Court of Belize.
So while the residents were hoping to expand their village, Flowers indicated that they would need to purchase the land back from him, since he is now the rightful owner. He noted as well that he has to fence his property due to the invasion of the villagers' cattle. Courtney Menzies, 7 News.